Gil Gilbertson has around 30 years of national and international experience as a law enforcement officer, trainer, advisor, and senior administrator in both military and civilian police units. He's a Vietnam veteran, has served in the U.S. Navy, Air National Guard, Army National Guard, and Army Reserve. Gil participated in SWAT teams and served as a professional law enforcement instructor and advisor for the Special Tactics Association and International Law Enforcement Training Group. In January 2007, he was elected sheriff of Josephine County, Oregon. He was re-elected for a second term in November 2010. Gil recognizes his responsibility to the citizens of Josephine County as the chief law enforcement officer and is bringing together other sheriff departments to stand as a unified front against incursion of their duties by various federal agencies. Sheriff Gil Gilbertson, finally, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Global Freedom Report.
Good afternoon, Brent.
You've participated in SWAT teams and also been a professional instructor for special tactics training. Would you comment on the increase in the use of SWAT teams around the country, as well as the expansion of the reasons they send them out? For example, there was a SWAT team sent out by the Department of Education to locate a woman who was delinquent in her student loan payments. I mean, have governments gone too far in the use of SWAT teams?
Well, if that's what they're doing, I'd have to say, yeah, they're probably a little bit extreme. SWAT teams are necessary if you have an armed confrontation or the potential of a life-threatening situation. It's better to send in a team that is specifically schooled, educated, and well-versed in levels of force, movement tactics, cover concepts, and so forth. So I'd rather have a professional team knowing what they're doing, going in and doing such an operation, than to just take a bunch of guys off the street and say, do this. The consequences are tremendous if the activity goes wrong. We're talking serious litigation in the multi-millions of dollars. And personally, I see that as the wrong way to go. Part of my job is to protect the public from litigation. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. But having a well-trained unit is much better than the risk of untrained personnel.
But I'm sure you would agree that SWAT teams are not intended for everything. I mean, not just, I don't know, to serve some kind of summons or to go after a woman for student loans. I mean, there've got to be limits. We don't want them doing everything.
I absolutely agree with you.
How does training of law enforcement personnel today differ from when you were a trainee or when you were a trainer?
Well, actually, I started in law enforcement in 1974, and back then it was a matter of, they didn't really care what your educational background was. It was a matter of, could you kick somebody's butt? With attorneys, I kind of have two outlooks on it. Attorneys are out there looking for money. They're looking for nuisance fees. They're looking for any acts under color of law, Title 42, Section U.S. Code, Section 1983, that any officer that deprives or causes someone to be deprived of any rights, privileges secured by the Constitution. But in the first 90 years that law was on the books, only 36 cases made it to court. Now, the follow-up Title 42, Section 1988, gave the attorneys kind of a carrot. If you successfully prosecute law enforcement officer for doing something they shouldn't have, not only will we give you what you asked for, but we may even give you a bonus. In that year alone, 40,000 cases went to court, and it's grown exponentially since then. Now, having said that, if it weren't for those laws in place that they are, forcing law enforcement to go through the rigorous training that is required today, setting those standards, I'd venture to say we'd still be doing law enforcement the way it was done back then. So I see this as a positive, bringing law enforcement from basically the dark ages into user-friendly, if you would, or proper procedures and conduct. I think it actually took litigation to make that happen. So I see that as the good side, the strong side.
You spoke about how the mechanism of training has improved, and I have no doubt that that is true, but that's also only half the equation, because the content of training, obviously, is the other half. Adolf Hitler trained his troops. Stalin trained his troops. Training itself, okay, can be good or it can be bad. And as a trainer, I'm just curious. It seems to me, just looking at the news and seeing what's out there, that police today and deputies today are being more trained in a military style than in the past. In the past, they seem to almost be more like your friendly local deputy or your friendly local officer, and he just sort of walks the beat and you hang out with him and you talk to him. Today, it seems like everything's been militarized. Is that my imagination, or is something going on in the training?
I think it's more probably your level of awareness. We've had SWAT teams, if you would, for back in the 60s. You're absolutely correct. The elements of what's being taught is actually derived from court decisions. The court says in certain circumstances you can use whatever force or whatever equipment, depending on the level of aggression and so forth. So as instructors in developing the curriculum, we pay very close attention to what those court instructions are, if you would, because we know that we're going to, our liability rests on the instructors as well as the entity or the agency that they work for. So there's a long list, a litany of individuals, organizations that can be brought into litigation in training an officer. Then the officer does something wrong. Not only does the officer get sued, the agency gets sued, and the trainers get sued. And all those things are closely scrutinized by both defense and your prosecution. So it's imperative that the curriculum meets the standards that are established by court decisions.
Okay, let's talk now this relatively recent debacle that has happened. You kind of made headlines by taking a stand against the federal U.S. Forest Service over land use matters in Josephine County, which is your jurisdictional territory. Now, I understand that this all began with a series of complaints you received from your citizens concerning harassment by Forest Service law enforcement officers. Is that right? Can you tell us how this started and what kind of harassment?
That's correct. We have mining. They're out looking for precious minerals. This county, by the way, albeit it's a poor county, is probably sitting on the wealthiest deposit, largest valuable minerals in the entire West Coast. But that's another story. The miners out there on their lands, following the 1872 Mining Act, mining laws, are doing what they're supposed to be doing according to them. And there are a list of things, if they violate, they could lose that mining claim. Now, the mining claims are on public lands. Once they are a legitimate mining claim, however, they're removed from public lands and become public domain. And there's a distinct difference between the two. The federal government has the authority over public lands, no question about it. Now, understand, I don't have all the answers, and I'm on a steep learning curve here. None of this was on my radar until, sometime back when the miners came in and complained. As the chief law enforcement official of this county, I have the responsibility to make sure that anyone living in this community is protected, and that may be from overzealous law enforcement or other sources. So in pursuance of making sure that everything was done correctly and they're being treated fairly, I did make contact with BLM. The response I got was they were advised they were not to talk to me about any issues, and I asked where that came from, and they said their legal advisor. So I pretty much hit the roof, I guess, and basically, well, there was an article that came out in the paper.
Well, now, hang on. Sheriff Gil, just for a second, what was the harassment that was going on with the miners? In other words, what made them come to you in the first place?
It was a variety of things. They felt that, and I really can't get into the specifics of all of them, but pretty much we had one ranger that felt it necessary to disarm you before he even talked to you. People have the right to have guns, and if you're out in the wilderness, there's bears and cougars and whatnot. People have the right to defend themselves, but this particular agent would actually physically disarm you before he dealt with you, and to me that's just a little bit stepping over the line.
No, I completely.
If he would have come and seen me, I'd have gone with him, for his own protection, and participated in that sense. Just to go out there and do those kind of things kind of irritates people.
Well, I completely agree with you. If I was in your county, I would be making a lot of noise about that as well. But U.S. Forest Service, why do they have law enforcement officers in your county in the first place?
Well, a little background, and again, I don't have all the answers, and I may be speaking out of hat here, but the federal government can come in and take lands from a state. However, that does not give them jurisdiction. And by Constitution, they have to pay for that land. It's up to the state to cede the authority back to the federal government. They have to accept. Now, the state of Oregon, and I can't answer for any of the states because I simply haven't researched it, but the state of Oregon did give the federal government on national forest lands concurrent jurisdiction. They also took it a step further and put it into Oregon statute that federal agents, specifically the forests, could arrest people and prescribe the conduct in which that would be accomplished. So the state of Oregon did give them concurrent jurisdiction. So you got other issues that we're looking at. Now, also in the Oregon statute, and again, this may be unique to Oregon, but the voters of the county of the land that the National Forest just happens to be in must agree or disagree with this. Back years, and I don't know when this law took effect yet, but we were part of another county, and we separated from that. We were part of Jackson County. So the public information request that we put in so far, we have not been able to determine whether that election actually occurred or not. So that's yet another avenue that we're researching. I'm not going to leave any stones unturned. I'm obligated to follow this through to find out what the law really is and what authorities they have.
Well, and that was going to be my question. Do their law enforcement personnel pose a conflict with you and your deputies?
Well, we haven't butted heads at this point, other than and I've complained about a specific ranger that just, I feel he's over the line, but we have this month the senior law enforcement official out of Vancouver, Washington, who's the regional top dog, is going to come down and we're going to talk. So we've got a lot of things in place now that haven't come to fruition as of yet, that I'm trying to coordinate sheriffs in Oregon and the sheriffs in Northern California, because we all have the same issues, that we get together and we pursue this until we get resolution, so we know what we're talking about, and that we're in compliance, and they are as well.
Let me back up a moment and ask you about your interaction with the federal agency, the U.S. Forest Service, or the BLM, when basically they told you that, I think in the article it said you could go pound sand or something. They essentially told you they were not going to talk to you, they were not going to be involved with you, they didn't care who you were.
They didn't actually, they didn't use those words. They just simply said that they were told not to talk to me, and that if I wanted any information, I had to file a Freedom of Information request. Of which time I just told him that I will not do. You're obligated to provide this information to me. The news got wind of it and wrote an article. 2 days later, I got a call and they asked if I'd come in, sit down and talk with them, and I did. And they did answer my questions. And they provided me with a document that identified where their source of authority came from. Before I say anything further on that, I've asked different entities what their authority was, where it came from, and so forth. And almost every one of them has given me a different document. What confuses me in this is why isn't it the same document? You know, this all should have been from a central repository or location.
You would think.
What I was told by the U.S. Forest Service is they're hanging their hat on three issues. One is a CRS, which is an opinion paper written for Congress by a group of legal researchers. And what they hang their hat on is Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 of the Constitution. The Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needed rules and regulations respecting territory or other property belonging to the United States. And nothing in this Constitution shall be construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any other particular state. The second issue that they're hanging their hat on, which again was provided to me by the U.S. Forest Service, is a Supreme Court ruling that described their power as without limitation. Now, I got to hold the phone on that one. I can't imagine any governmental entity having powers without limitation. That just set me back on my heels.
That's called a dictatorship.
Well, I'd have to agree with that. Now, the third issue that they're hanging their hat on is the Federal Supremacy Clause. So, from the U.S. Forest Service themselves, this is what they provided me with that gives them the right to do what they're doing. They neglected to talk about Article 1, Section, I can't remember, but paragraph 17, which enumerates, their authority, and it's for forts, arsenals, and so forth, not to exceed a 10 mile square plot of land. So there's a lot of things that they don't share with me, and I have to research, and that's kind of what I'm in right now. Is in the middle of all this research. I have mountains of documents here that I'm wading through to see, what's what.
Did you get the impression? Did you get the impression that they consider themselves superior to you?
Yes.
Okay, which is exactly what I would have expected, but I wanted to know if you got that impression. Now, I understand that Sheriff Palmer of neighboring Grant County refused to sign an agreement with the Forest Service, some kind of cooperative agreement, but despite all the complaints you got and what you've become embroiled in, you decided to sign that agreement.
Well, it's a continuation of what we've had. Now, if this is, we're going to go through the coordination process here. In fact, we have an attorney by the name of Fred Kelly Grant that's coming in to help this community, this county, and sheriffs of both Oregon and California to go through this coordination process. By their own federal rules and regulations, the federal entities are required to sit down and coordinate any of these issues. And we are now holding them accountable to just that. We want to do that. The commissioners here are now looking at a land use and resource management policy or plan. Up until now, we have not had that. Nobody came to us and told us, this is available. We had to find out by just stumbling upon it. But as such, we are now taking it serious. The sheriff is a part of that. The economy of a county is dependent upon resources in many, many areas. It certainly is here. They're closing these roads. I don't believe they have the authority to do that, because we have laws written in 1901, 1902 that preclude it. You've got the 2477. You've got all these different legal opinions that they're not really supposed to be doing that. They are. And what it does for me is it impacts my ability to conduct search and rescue, to do criminal investigations, to respond in emergencies, even to back them up. If I run into a road that's closed or they've destroyed it to such a degree that I can't get a vehicle through it, I got an issue. So that's one of the main issues that I'm pushing.
So, but I still don't understand why you agreed to this cooperative agreement if your fellow sheriff would refuse to for some reason.
Well, what the cooperative agreement is, and again, if this coordination process is not taken serious, I certainly will get rid of this cooperation plan. Cooperation plan does not give us any say in anything. The coordination process does. The coordination clause is they're hiring one of my deputies to go out there and help patrol. My deputies have been given specific instructions, however. They're not to enforce any federal laws. They're only to enforce state laws, which we do anyway. I have not sworn in anyone from the U.S. Forest Service as one of my deputies to cover under my umbrella. I did with the BLM. We're not having as many problems with BLM. In fact, they've been bending over backwards for the miners and others. But what I was looking at, we're a poor county. I don't have enough deputies to cover 1,600 square miles adequately. And what this does is if I swear them in, I want them to respond as a backup to come and help us if we get knee-deep in trouble. So that's my intent. With the U.S. Forest Service, all it does is they hire a part-time deputy to go out and basically they have him just look at campsites and one of the main roads into the forest area. He patrols that for violators and speeding and reckless driving. Is it something I could do without? Yeah, they don't pay enough to make this worthwhile. It just gives somebody a position. But again, I got to go back.
Well, actually, let me interrupt you because I got a couple more questions and I don't want to run out of time on this. And it's fascinating. I love listening to you, but unfortunately we're against the clock. That's what radio's about. Now, I understand you and Sheriff Palmer are not alone. The Oregon Sheriff's Association, and there are reports coming out of growing numbers of sheriffs who are, shall we say, dissatisfied with the way federal agencies are operating within and around their respective counties. So, are we seeing the seeds of a sheriff's rebellion of sorts?
No, not a rebellion. It's an awakening, however. I convinced the Sheriff's Association that we need to establish a committee to research this. I'm chairing that committee. Sheriff Palmer is a part of it, as well as a couple of more. And I'm coordinating with a sheriff in Siskiyou County, California, to work together as a group of sheriffs on both sides of this border to see that people are treated correctly, and there's no violations or incursions by any other entity. We will not abrogate our responsibility to conduct law enforcement within our jurisdiction. I won't give up any of that. If there's a crime, I will pursue it. And I don't care if it's on federal lands or not. It's our jurisdiction, and I do impose, as a chief law enforcement officer, I will go out there and conduct law enforcement business. And if I meet a resistance to that, I don't have a problem with making an arrest.
Well, I know that brings me to that question, because I understand you're heading up this committee and you're looking into whether the federal agencies are essentially overstepping their constitutional powers and jurisdictional limits. Now, let's say you find out that is exactly what's happening. You find out that that the U.S. Forest Service or whichever agency is overstepping its legitimate powers and its legitimate limits. Now what? What are you empowered to do as head of this committee, okay, and as sheriff in your own right, to actually fix the problem rather than just say we've studied it and found that there's a problem?
Yeah, you're talking two different functions. As the sheriff, I will take whatever steps necessary to protect the people of this community. that means I have to arrest somebody for violating their rights or breaking state laws, I certainly will do that. As far as the Sheriff's Association goes, we're taking, measured steps. We're in this research phase right now, and we will sit down as a group and discuss, where we're at with the sheriffs. Now, of the 36 counties in the state of Oregon, there's only 18 of them that are affected by federal lands and these kind of issues. So I'm not going to get full compliance with all the sheriffs. Some of them don't care because it doesn't affect them at this point. It may down the road, but then we'll understand the laws better so that we can deal with it as that approaches.
Well, fantastic. I'm very glad to hear that you're willing to, even if it ends up being a federal agent who's done the incursion, that you're willing to do what's necessary, to stop him from overstepping his lawful authority. That's the kind of sheriff we want to see out there. Sheriff Gil Gilbertson, thanks so much for spending this time with us. If you want more information, by the way, folks, www.jocosheriff.us. Thanks so much, and the best of fortune in your endeavor to maintain law, order, and peace in your county.
Thank you, Brent.